Hello. It's pretty funny because I just clicked this on and I don't know, you may or may not be able to start hearing it through the microphone. The rain just started kind of pounding against the window that's directly to my right. So that was pretty funny. Hello. Hello to everyone. I see my golfer is here in Stitch Itch in Virginia. Welcome. Susan Post. Hi, Susan. Thank you for joining me. We're just fine. Elizabeth Davis, Philpott Davis, Kiora, New Zealand. The weather is not in you're in cold and sunny. Excellent. I'm excited that we have someone from New Zealand here. Um, and there's Knit Eco Chic. Hello, welcome, welcome. I am Barbara Benson. I'm an independent knitwear designer, and we're here for a live stream that's basically called an Ask Me Anything, which you can totally ask me anything. We're here to talk about anything knitting, fiber, yarn, and really anything you can get me to talk about. I'm sure that we will be talking about the hurricane quite a little bit. It's interesting. This has not, so far, knock on wood, it really hasn't been a significant impact. We are in evacuation zone D, which is one of the, if we get evacuated, they're expecting a near direct hit. My mother is in evacuation zone A because her home is actually directly on Philippi Creek. So she and her pets are at our house right now just to make sure it's on the safe side, because the last one that came through, Debbie came through, she ended over here because the flooding was so bad. But this particular Helene, is she, is staying further off the coast. It hitched a little bit west and then straightened back out, and it's drifting a little bit, but we really are not seeing a whole lot. We specifically meaning me, like where I am not near any bodies of water, and well, other than the Gulf, and we're in a relatively high for Florida area. Now, I know that Siesta Key and Longboat Key and Lido Key and in the barrier islands are not doing that. I mean, they are inundated because of the storm surge, but we're not anywhere to be affected by that. The number one thing that's going to happen is we've had brownouts and we've had our lights flicker several times, and that's just about the power lines and trees and stuff like that. Who else? Hello, Barbara Brian Wilson in Bethesda, Maryland. So glad that you have joined us. Yeah, my mom actually just went over to her house to check it out. She came in. I just heard her come in, so I don't know what the results are. I don't know if she's staying tonight or going back. My son is home because they closed the schools. And again, they closed the schools not necessarily because they anticipate there being so much water and rain and everything that the schools are going to be affected, but because the schools are used for the evacuation shelters. So they have to do that. And if you're expecting winds over 35 miles per hour, the buses can't go. So if the buses can't go, school is canceled. And if they think they're even if it's just zone A evacuating, they're gonna close the schools down because that's where the shelters are. So that's why school has been canceled. My husband mentioned earlier that Broward County has already said that they are going to go back to school tomorrow. Broward County is in Miami, and Miami is like, it's like way down on the point, but it is on more Atlantic coast. So and this system is far enough into the Gulf that Miami didn't really see a whole lot of anything. Hello, Heidi. Hello, Kathleen. Have I made any knitting books purchases? That's an interesting question we'll get to. Elizabeth, daughter hungering down in Decatur, Georgia, and Heather. Hello, Heather. I am just fine. So the comment about Elizabeth made about Decatur, Georgia, I have a lot of friends since I lived in Georgia for Atlanta specifically for 20 years. I have a lot of friends in Decatur and Tucker and all kinds of around there. And there's a distinct possibility that they're going to get hit worse with huge amounts of rain that they're not expecting and winds than I personally am. I think that the area that we need to be the most concerned about and hold into the light and do what we can is what I was reading about is the Appalachians. So the North Georgia, North South Carolina, and where North Carolina hits Tennessee, those Appalachians, the system is going to just come straight up through Atlanta and hit that mountain chain and dump a historic amount of rain on it. The thing I was reading said it was like comparable to floods that were in what they anticipate is comparable to floods that were in Asheville like in 1916. Like they haven't seen anything like this. So I'm going to hold all of those people into the light and hope that there's enough time to prepare and people stay safe. Hello, Robin. Light and hope that there's enough time to prepare and people stay safe. Hello, Robin in Houston, Texas. Hello, Kathy in Indiana, and Heidi. Yeah, you're prepared in Dothan, Alabama. Are you in the path? I know that it's mostly going to blow up through Georgia, but that Florida Bama area can be really touchy. It's like it's kind of going to go directly up 75. Okay, we had an actual knitting question. Kathleen Thompson asked me, have I made any knitting books purchases? I have bought all kinds of knitting books, all of the books you see behind me, except for down there, which you consider that down there. I have some embroidery books. No, those are knitting books. I have some embroidery books right there, but everything else in these shelves are knitting books. What were you asking about? Any specific? I haven't bought any recently. Maybe I should. Now you got me thinking about it. Maybe I should look into what new knitting books out there. The thing about knitting books is I do not tend to purchase pattern books. Like what typically people think of as a knitting book would be a book like the books I've written, where it's designs and patterns, and it's like multiple patterns that you might want to knit based around some sort of theme. And I have plenty of those books because I have friends who have written these books and I have received them for review and I love them, but I don't knit other people's patterns. It's not something that I have time for because I'm always knitting my own stuff. So the vast majority of the books that I purchase, knitting books, are stitch dictionaries. I would say the majority, like you would say over 50% of the books I have are stitch dictionaries, but also books that are specifically about technique and theory and yarn. And I have books on like the Clara Parks books, the Big Book of Yarn and the Book of wool, and I think it's Deborah Newton. I have books on design. I have books on design. I have books on like regional, like traditional type things. Like I have an Estonian lace book and things like that. So I'm curious. I would love a follow-up question, Kathleen, about what you're looking to talk about books, because I do love books and I can pull any book off my shelf and show it to y'all. If I can get it off the shelf without knocking down any of my bric-a-brac or gewgaws, because I have lots of bric-a-brac and gewgaws. Everybody's going to get rain. This thing is just the entire like East Coast to everything, hundreds of miles to the east and hundreds of miles to the west of where this storm is going to tear through is going to get rain. And, I'm really concerned about Tallahassee because that's where it's going to hit. You can hear it. Oh, I don't know. Here, I don't know if y'all, let me see if I can. Nope, the wire. I don't think y'all are going to be able to see. Well, there you can see that's just the bush that's right next to my house. And it's moving. And when the gusts hit, the palm trees and stuff are bending way over, and the palm leaves are doing their streamer thing. There's my duck, my Swiss duck. Okay, have there been any comments? You want to see my book? You guys have seen my book 16 times. Yes, I have 2 books. But yes, it is Big Yarn, Beautiful Lace Knits. I really wanted to like name it I Like Big Yarn and I Cannot Lie, but nobody at my publishing company thinks I'm funny. Oh, Kathleen, you recently joined the Knitting Guild of America and you're taking the correspondence class basics. Knitting Guild of America and you're taking the correspondence class basics. Very cool. I have no knowledge of the TKGA's programs. I know they're a wonderful organization. And I know that their knitting course, their master knitter thing is just unbelievably involved and amazing, and I know people who have worked on it, and it is a multi-month if not year project, so good on you for getting stuff from them. Patty Lyon's Knitting Bag of Tricks workbook looks interesting. Haven't seen that one. I might look into that. I do enjoy most of Patty Lyon's contents. She is a very, very knowledgeable fiber artist. LPGA, I'm looking for fingering and mohair yarn for a classic Christmas sweater in true Christmas red. So let me pull up. Let me look at fingering weight. The thing that popped to mind immediately for me was, where is the new? Well, I'm just going to look at this here. I don't know if it's one of the things that made me think of is, no, I don't know if that's red enough. Malabrigo has most of their colors on most of their bases, and they have a color called Ravelry Red that is a very, very bright red. And that is a good option. Who else has reds? Inzula has a really, really wide color palette. They probably have a really good red. Let me see. Here are the reds. That's the page for reds for Inzula. And they have one called Red Shoe and Garnet, and those are very red reds. Let's see. I'm shopping for yarn for you. I'm okay. La 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 la. Let's look at. Here is Miss Babs sorted reds on Yummy 2-ply, which is a fingering weight. And there's some pretty good reds there. Let's see what kind of, I don't know that Knit Picks has a fingering weight yarn that's soft enough that I would do for a sweater. Comfy's got acrylic in it. Ooh, this one's nice. This is a Knit Picks, which is a silk blend, and it's got a cranberry that looks pretty red. So there, I mean, it's just a matter of going through different sources and trying to find reds. You know, Heather, this is like our weather is, this is like, I mean, yeah, it's going up and down, and it is getting intense, but most of the time it's not that much worse than just the really bad storms we always have. Florida is just very extra when it comes to raining and storming. They like it. They're like, wee, let's make a hot mess. But I don't know if y'all might be able, again, I can't move. This is my thing. I don't know if you can hear it. It's going to calm down as soon as I do this. If you can hear the rain. Rain. It's calmed down. So, and what I would do is, my golfer is, once you look at, like, if you look at the Knit Picks and you see, and you decide you like that cranberry, then just look at their other bases and see if they have. So it'd be under the lace weight, and they have a mohair. They have a mohair blend, and it doesn't come in a really cool, it does not really look like it comes in a true red. So again, you might have to mix and match. I'm trying to think, like Rowan Kid Silk Haze comes in a fairly wide range of colors, but they're getting more challenging to find because they were acquired by another company and their distribution has gotten a little weird. You waited a whole month to ask your question? Was it that question? The red question? Oh my goodness. Okay. I need to go back. I missed some stuff. Okay. Patty Lyons Knitting Bag of Tricks. And then I went back. Fingering Mohair Yarn. Okay, Kathleen, you've started buying knitting books every month. Well, you do that. That is amazing. I need to do that. I love knitting books. I love knitting books. I love supporting authors. Obviously, I am one. And this has done weird things since I played with it. Let me see what happens. I'm all bleached out. There we go. Did that change for you? Did I get a little did I look a little less Casper the Friendly Ghost now? I'm a very pale human being. Okay. Do I have advice for designing different shapes of shawls, or a book I can get to help me know how to shape them? Robin. So I actually, for some basic shapes, I actually made videos that are specifically to do that. So it's a step-by-step. If you go and I think it's in the new knitting tutorials playlist. But there are a series of, let me look and see, playlists. I think it's in the new. So there is a, it's not cooperating with me. How come none of the buttons you click on do what you actually want them to do? There we go. So there's a crescent shaped shawl. There's a crescent shaped, where is it? Crescent shaped shawl. I don't know. But I have a crescent shaped shawl, let me see. Here's how to knit an easy crescent shaped shawl. And that talks about And in these ones, I talk about shaping. So there's a crescent shape one, an asymmetrical crescent shape one, and I think I did a side-to-side triangle. I might do another shape, but also a wonderful this is a very old link, and it is to a blog that is no longer updated, but I'm going to link to it here. This is some basic shawl shapes on how to design them. And that is a really, so I'm linking to this instead of, because you can go in there and look at it. And it's the shawl knitting cheat sheet, and it talks about basics of shawl shaping. I know if you go on Ravelry, there are people who have discussed, and they have little ebooks and things on different shawl shapes and things like that. I know I've talked about triangles. There's all different sorts of ways to accomplish the same thing, you know, but like in general, a top-down triangle shawl has 4 increases every right side row. And those 4 so it's about the number of increases and how those increases are distributed on the row. So a top-down triangle in general has 4 increases every right side row, and you have an increase on each edge and 2 increases down the center. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's what gives you the triangle and pushes it out. A crescent-shaped shawl tends to have 6 increases for every 2 rows. And how you distribute those increases affects what type of crescent it is. For many crescent-shaped shawls, what they have is 2 on one edge, 2 on the other edge, and then on the wrong side row, 1 and 1 on the edges. So you're essentially doing 3 on the edges every 2 rows. But the crescent-shaped shawls you see that kind of have a triangle in the middle of them, you have a moving line where the yarn overs, the second and third increases move out in like a triangular shape to push those wings out. So it's 1 on the edge. It starts out 1 on the edge, 2 in the center, 1 on the edge. But the way you place your stitch markers, you yarn over inside the stitch markers or increase inside the stitch markers, so that center panel increases. As opposed to with a triangle, you have your yarn over, stitch marker, yarn over, and the increases stay down, like going down the center. So that's how that changes. And then the asymmetrical boomerang shapes, what you're doing is increasing 1 stitch every 2 rows. And which edge you increase on, and whether you increase on the right or the wrong side is going to impact how it's shaped. And then there's all kinds of wonky shapes. And then there's pie shawl shaping for circular shawls, and then half pie shaping for half circle shawls. And then there's spoke shaping for circular shawls, and then half, like, there's a lot. If there's a specific shape you'd like to talk about, I'd be happy to. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay, I'm trying to catch up. Okay, I was just looking for the Miss Babs. Miss Babs is awesome. Okay, Heather Goch. Hi, what is the best wool to use for newborn babies? Knitting a blanket as my Matthew, expecting twins do. Well, the best wool to use is going to be the wool that the parents want. If you're going to go with wool, I would definitely go with a superwash wool, and like a merino, because you want it to be soft for a baby. The baby blanket that I made was out of Miss Babs Yowza, which is a 100% superwash merino. The big thing that you need to think about when selecting for a baby item is washability. So cotton is also an excellent, it's not a wool. And if you're using wool in the British way of just wool means yarn, um, a cotton is frequently a good choice. I use hang on, where am I typing? Like when I made a blanket for my nephew who was in Atlanta, and like in warm weather climates, I used this yarn, which is Blue Sky Fibers Organic Cotton Worsted. It is an excellent yarn for a baby blanket. It is on the heavy side of worsted, so it's almost closer to Aran, but it comes in amazing, beautiful colors, and it can make a wonderful baby blanket. And you can always get into the nylon acrylic blends like Barocco Comfort for babies. And really, the only difference between Barocco Comfort and the Barocco Baby Comfort is that it's in baby skeins. It's in smaller skeins, so you can do like color work and things like that. You can do the DK, and it's going to be like a nylon acrylic blend, and that is really good for the washability. So it just depends on what you're looking for. If the parents are more along the lines that they want natural fibers, a cotton or a wool might be a good choice. If your primary concern is washability and ease of care, looking into something that is very much throw it in the washing machine and it is bulletproof, that might be your choice. Let me look it up. Okay, so what I was thinking of is, so you've got Barocco Vintage Baby, which is DK weight, and it is, where's the fiber content? It's an acrylic nylon wool blend, so it does have some wool in it. That is here, but I believe they also have a Comfort Baby, but that is a good. That one it comes in a lot of nice, pretty colors that you can play with. But so I hope that's helpful, Heather. Okay. Yes, Barbara Bryan Wilson. She says she likes acrylic for baby blankets because they need to be washed often and there's no blocking. You're totally correct about that. I do tend to like the ones that are acrylic nylon blends because I just like the feel of acrylic and nylon better than just straight up acrylic. They have the same basic washability to them. It's just personal preference. William says no ghost. Oh, thank you, William. I'm glad you like the shawl videos. Use them for your prayer shawl. And that is a wonderful application of that. Yes, Heidi, you are the person who made me very aware that more people with visual disabilities use YouTube than I was aware of. So I really try to keep that in mind. It has resulted in people being like, you talk too much. I'm like, it's like you just met me. Of course I talk too much. That's why I'm on YouTube. Oh, Knit Eco Chic also likes Blue Sky Fibers organic cotton. And let me tell you, the first time I bought that yarn, the first time I made a group baby blanket with it, it was still Blue Sky Alpaca was the name of the company. So, and now Blue Sky is part of a group, and they're owned by Malabrigo, I think. I don't know. I don't keep up with that kind of thing anymore much. Okay, Knit Crochet Tiger. Wouldn't it be risky to use an animal or plant fiber for baby things? Like the reason a lot of people find wool itchy is because they're allergic to lanolin, which sheep have on their skin. So most people who think that now there are people who are allergic to wool. I will not argue against that. That is definitely a thing. Just like there are people with celiac disease and there are people that have gluten allergies. But most people who think wool is itchy they think it's itchy simply because they have never dealt with fine wools. Fine wools, a merino wool, a BFL wool, the fine wools that I'm talking about. And another reason is why I did specify superwash. The superwash process pretty much strips almost all of the lanolin out of the fibers. When you're dealing with these highly processed fine wools, there's almost no lanolin left because I'm allergic to lanolin. And I've never had any problems working with a superwash wool. And they are soft. Uh, it's just most people who say, no, I don't want wool, really the only exposure to wool they have had is itchy wools or minimally processed wools. And it's just, and like the wool that's in like the itchy school uniforms and things like that. These are not fine wools. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about a fine hand knit wool. So a fine merino wool, very few people are going to have a reaction to that unless they're truly allergic to wool, which there are definitely people out there who are truly allergic to wool. I'm pretty sure one of them is in the chat right now. And I totally understand that. But which is why I've had people, they're like, oh, I'm allergic to wool. I'm like, just touch this gently. And they're like, oh, that doesn't bother me at all. Well, I'm like, so what kind of reaction do you have? Oh, it's just itchy. Like if someone says I'm allergic to wool and I break out in hives, I am not going to push them to touch wool. But if they're just like, I just don't like it, then we kind of try to move past that. But now cotton is, I mean, as far as fibers go, one of the most that you're not going to really have. I don't know if anyone's allergic to cotton. I mean, I guess it's possible. It's possible allergic to anything. I'm going to Google. Okay, apparently the people who are allergic to cotton, it's asthma due to aerosolized cotton because they work in a cotton factory. So, okay, here we go. Okay, that's way too much. Okay, from the Annals of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, no cases of true skin allergy have been documented. Oh, I don't want cookies. Yeah, the cotton allergies that have been documented are because of dust and not like skin contact. So I think cotton is probably pretty safe. But I don't know. Again, talk to the parents and see what they want. Because when it comes down to it, the people who are in charge of that is the parents. Sorry, you guys just watched me fall down a rabbit hole. Somebody asked me a question that I didn't have an answer for, and I have a really hard time with not knowing answers to something that kind of bugs me. Crescent shawl for dummies in 2 minutes. I think it might take a little bit more than that. Hi, Sarah Jo. Welcome. Kathleen is asking me, when did I begin knitting? I started knitting in 2010. I crocheted previously, but very, very badly. And I had a good friend, who was trying to entertain me because I was having a hard time. So 10. So my son would be 4 then, and I was having a hard time adjusting to, the life that I had before I had my child was drastically different, and the vast majority of my friends were childless, so child-free, and I was struggling to figure out how to entertain myself in the brief between times and taking care, becoming a full-time mom. And it's finding this new phase of my life. So she brought over a crochet project for us to work on. So we could have something to do, and it was fun. And then once we finished the project, she's like, okay, we need to take pictures of it and put it on Ravelry. And I was like, what is Ravelry? And so that is how I found out that this was her, her nefarious plan to get me on Ravelry. So once I was on Ravelry, and started posting things, I started participating in one of the very active forums with her that her and her friends were in. It was a game. And then I really got into that. And I kept seeing, once I was on Ravelry, so many beautiful images of knit things that I decided I needed to learn how to knit. And I had tried to learn how to knit before, and it just didn't work for reasons. And so I just started knitting. And so I had 2010, I started to learn how to knit, and I started knitting like absolutely everything. And then I started wondering, like, I remember the first thing I did was this, like, it was a head triangle kerchief thing that was just plain. And I had borrowed a stitch dictionary. I was like, ooh, what if, no, I didn't even have a stitch dictionary. I just found another, like a washcloth pattern on Ravelry that had a different pattern on it. I'm like, what would happen if I took this stitch pattern and stuck it into this thing? And how could I make that work? And then I just kind of went bonkers and ended up publishing my first design, my first official design to Ravelry in 2011, and just kind of kept on exploring what would happen if I did this? What if I did that? What if I did this other thing? And it's just snowballed from there, completely unintentionally and in kind of a wacky way. So that answered that. I hope that answered that question. Yes, Nidiyoko Sheep, thank you. Remember to click the thumbs up if you're enjoying this. It might get some other people to come say hi. I'm excited that so many of you have joined us, even when it's kind of yucky outside. It is it's exciting as always to chat with y'all. Oh, so Knit Eco Chic does say some people have reactions to the oil on cotton. So okay, there we go. That is a possibility. So the acrylic nylon blends. I'm sure Barocco has one. I think Barocco Comfort doesn't have the wool in it. Yes, Barocco Comfort. So I linked to Baby Vintage, but Barocco Comfort doesn't have the wool in it at all. It is just a acrylic nylon blend, and it's a really nice yarn. I wouldn't be surprised if Knit Picks didn't have one as well. I love cotton. Cotton. Now the thing is about cotton is not something that has high insulation properties. Cotton is not, if you knit a blanket out of cotton, it's not necessarily going to be the warmest thing. Cotton is very breathable, which again is why it's really good for blankets here in the South. But if your goal is warmth, cotton is not the best of choices. But if it's more just for the baby to have a blanket to lay over them and keep the chill off and those kind of things, cotton is an excellent choice. Oh, bye, Knit Eco Chic. Thank you so much. Learning how to knit watching YouTube. YouTube wasn't as knitting friendly when I got started in 2010. But I was lucky because I had my friend to help me, because that's really the best. But mostly I learned how to knit from books. And that also has a lot to do with the fact that my learning process is reading. I learn best from listening. I also learn from watching, and I mean, I'm not restricted to one, but learning things like that, reading is one of my best. Reading with pictures also good. Um, the videos, sometimes I have used videos. The one thing, um, learning to do the actual Mobius cast on by Kat Bordy. I read instructions on how to do it, and it did not click. I watched videos, even Kat Bordy videos, and the videos did not. I could not wrap my brain around it. So eventually, I actually went to a knitting conference, a small knitting conference called the Small Knits Symposium. It only happened once, and actually took a class on it from Sylvia Harding, who learned it directly from Kat Borty, and then it finally made sense. Having, because I had to have the yarn and the needles in my hands, and I had to have a person explaining it to me, and it took, like, I had to engage all of the different learning styles, visual, audible, reading, everything, to make it truly make sense to me, because I just could not wrap my brain around what was happening. And it took an in-person class for me to learn Mobius. And I have taught Mobius classes since then, but whenever a store or a guild or anything has expressed interest in a learning how to do the Mobius cast on and knit Mobius style, I maximum 8 students. I cannot teach any more than 8 students how to do the Mobius cast on, because it is such something that requires a hand-on involvement in being able to watch all of the students fairly carefully to make sure they're getting it. Now, I know there are other people that can do it better than me, but if pressed, I can do it. It's just, it's a mind-bending kind of thing. Oh, Vivian, you retracted your message. I hope it was something fun and interesting, because I want to see it. Don't retract messages. Well, thank you, my golfer, for that. Cumulus by Juniper Moon is a wonderful Aran cotton yarn. I am not familiar with that one. I'm going to open up a... I do like Juniper Moon. I designed something in one of their other cotton yarns. It's a cotton linen blend, I think. Zoe. I don't remember. Okay, so that's a cotton nylon blend. Interesting. I wonder what Israeli Mako cotton is. I love it when they have fancy names, and it's like, okay, I need to figure out. That is a nice looking yarn. And Aran weight is nice. You know, it's probably close in weight to the... it actually looks fairly similar to the Blue Sky Fibers one. Looks like it might be a little more loosely plied. But I do like their stuff. Woven cotton fiber. I wonder if it's like a... Okay, now I'm very curious about that yarn. That was bad. Why are you making me look at that yarn, Elizabeth? Sarah Joe, I'm taking a long-term substitute teaching job for maternity leave, and I crocheted a teacher a baby blanket, gave it to her today. That is an absolutely fabulous thing that you did. I have crocheted many a baby blanket. Frankly, that is the fastest way to make a baby blanket. I mean, knitting a baby blanket is fun, but crocheting blankets is the fastest way to make the blanket happen. And that is a lovely gift. I used to make crocheted hats, like little hats for babies, because that's even faster. And I would always do the top down method, where you starting with the magic circle and just getting big, because it was easy. Stitch Itch. Yes, that's what I was talking about. Stitch Itch says, wow, just saw the flooding in Mountain City. Hope Miss Bab's studio is on higher ground. I do too. And that's what I was saying. That's up in that area. You're talking about the Appalachians right through there. And she's in the far east of Tennessee. So that area is it's gonna get hit hard. And it's not there yet. Barbara, my issues with books like the Vogue Knitting, the Ultimate Knitting book, I just don't understand the images, though they're written very well drawn. Nothing is wrong with your brain. Everybody processes information differently. Everybody's brain is different. And some people just learn better from different input. You got to give your brain the right input to make things work. If you're giving your brain the wrong input and it can't understand that language, then you need to find what language your brain does speak. So just because that kind of imagery is great for some people, doesn't mean it's going to be great for you. And you got to find what works for you. That doesn't mean your brain is broken. It just means it runs on a different operating system. And you can't, you can't put software designed for a Mac on a PC. You got to do what's it's supposed to do. Hello, Vivian in Canada. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited. And we have someone from New Zealand, and I really feel like there might be someone here from the United Kingdom, but I'm not sure. I'm excited. Wherever you're from, I don't care if you're my next door neighbor. I'm excited you're here. It's just absolutely wonderful that y'all joined me. And it's kind of chilling out down there. But I did hear my mom's dogs barking. So I'm guessing that she, for some reason, chose to not stay at her house. And one of the reasons just might be, going back to hurricane, is they told her, they said, Zone A, evacuate. If you're told to evacuate and you choose not to evacuate and things go bad, they're not coming to get you. So if they tell you to evacuate, you're accepting that you're on your own. When Debbie came through, no evacuation notices were sent out, and the flooding went really bad. Like the water was like armpit deep in front of my mom's house. So the fire trucks ran around and pulled people out of their houses and told them to go someplace else. No fire trucks are going to go around and pull people out of their houses if they were told to evacuate. It's just, if evacuation goes up, they're not going to be looking for people. Now, obviously, if you call and you request an emergency thing, they're going to do emergency thing. But otherwise, my mom would have just had to stay in a powered off house. It doesn't hurt your hands. Cotton can. Elizabeth said that the cumulus doesn't hurt her hands. It might be due to the yarn structure. Cotton can hurt your hands, and that's because it doesn't have any of the stretch or bounce that an animal fiber has. And when you're holding it under tension, there's just no relief to it. See, there we go. Sarah Jo agrees with me. Nothing's wrong with our call first brain. Oh, Sarah Jo. Well, you were just meant to start that. Sarah Jo said apparently her first baby had a special blanket made by the grandma. She sadly passed away before this baby, so she wasn't going to get a special blanket. I had no idea when I started it, but it was meant to be. So now the baby has a special blanket. Awesome. Knit Crochet Tiger, you made yourself a crocheted mosaic queen side blanket. It took you 6 months. Oh my gosh. No. That's a whole lot of no for me. Yeah, knitting something that size would just be mind-boggling. I could not. I've got you curious about Mobius knitting. So I've designed 2 Mobius cowls based on that after that class, and I actually paid an illustrator to draw. So I have 2 Mobius cowls. I should probably design more because it cost me a pretty penny to have the instructions made. So the last page is instructions on the cast on, and I managed to get it into one page, and it's written instructions on how to do the Mobius cast on with illustrations. And that's what I had to pay for. I had to pay someone to make illustrations for me. I was perfectly happy to, because I wanted to support artists. But so it has like very specific instructions on how to do the Mobius cast on in writing. And that only works if it works for your brain. I have never tried to make a Mobius cast on video, and I don't know that I ever would, because as I said, the number of questions I would get from it, it's hard. Maybe I should rethink that. I don't know. Mobius is hard, but Mobius is absolutely fascinating because you are truly creating a Mobius strip. The cast on of a Mobius strip actually is in the center of your work. And as you're knitting, it grows like this. So when you have a piece of fabric like this, the cast on is in the middle and you have edge on this side and edge on this side. So when you get to the point when you bind off the entire, it is truly mind-boggling and very cool. If I could find one of my Mobius cowls quickly, I would show it to you, but the odds of it being quick is very low. So unless you want to just sit here and look at my shelf for a while, I'd have to go dig. Yay, the golfer. I'm glad that my brain and your brain are on the same wavelength, Miss Golfer. Heather, is it better to knit a baby blanket on circular or normal knittings? So, it depends on how big. Typically, it is easier to knit a blanket on a circular knitting needle, but knitting flat. You're not knitting in the round, you're knitting flat on a circular needle, simply because depending on the width of the blanket, you're not going to be able to find needles long enough. And if you do, your wrists are going to be supporting the full weight of the blanket the whole time you're knitting, and it's going to get heavier and heavier. Whereas if you knit with a circular needle, the weight is going to rest on that cable and it can rest in your lap. And you can make a much, much wider thing because circular needles go up to 60, 70 inches. So you don't have to worry about being able to get all of your stitches onto the needle. So unless the baby blanket you're making is only this big, I would say circular needles because you're going to need like really long straight needles. I have not. Kathleen, I have not been watching the Weather Channel. We don't have like any sort of actual cable or anything like that. We have streaming services. We have Hulu and Amazon Prime and Netflix and Ichiyi and Rakuten Viki and Gaga Ulala and we have and Paramount, and I mean we have so many streaming services, but we do not have like cable. Oh, Max. That's the HBO Max thing. What was I watching on that? I was watching something on Max. I don't know. No, we do not have the Weather Channel. We have everything else, but not the Weather Channel. Okay. Edina, I decided I don't want to knit with 100% cotton. Instead, I tried cotton wool and cotton cashmeres. Yes, cotton wools and cotton cashmere. I love cotton cashmere yarn because it's like the best of both worlds. The wool, the animal fiber brings makes it easier on your hands, but the cotton lightens up the fiber of the wool. Yes, I did a hat in a cotton wool blend that I think has been discontinued. Absolutely loved it. And also, excuse me, one thing I really like about cotton wool and cotton cashmere blends, especially if they're hand dyed, is that wool and cotton take the dye very differently, and so it usually has a really interesting color visual texture. It's got like a variation or a modeliness to it that's really, really nice. Yes, but cotton hurts your hands. The cheap stuff, yes, I've knit with peaches and cream and made dishcloths, and your joints ache big time. Knit crochet tiger. Every time I hear the word Mobius, I think of Loki. Yes, there is a Marvel character named Mobius. I know nothing about him though. Oh, I missed that. I see so many people saying that Sarah Joe was a beast. Third Mini was a full-size blanket. Yeah, mm, no, I have never and can confidently say will never make a full-sized knit blanket. I probably will never make a full-sized, like, crocheted blanket. I've made some sizable Afghans, but mm-mm, nope, is too much. Heidi Cook, are your patterns available electronically? I need to hear directions nowadays. The only way my patterns are available is in as PDFs. So if you have like a reader for it, I don't know. And especially if I don't know what if that would work. I don't know how the readers work, or if we could figure out how to maybe modify the PDF to work for you. I could definitely work with you on that, Heidi. Yeah, Heather, if you've got osteoarthritis, cotton is probably and not just cotton. So any of your plant fibers are going to cause you strain, and silk. So cotton, flax is linen, hemp, and silk. Silk is not technically a plant fiber, but it behaves like a plant fiber. Though all of these, they don't really have any stretch to them. They just when you put them under tension in your hand, you end up with stress on your hands. You're not going to be able to knit as long as you typically do with a wool, because your wool has that bounce to it that doesn't put your fingers under as much strain as a plant fiber would. So yes, if you have osteoarthritis, I would avoid. But Elizabeth did say that this cumulus from Juniper Moon Farm doesn't bother her hands as much, and it might have to do with the structure of that yarn. Compensates for that. So you might be able to, if you really want to, you might be able to find some. But in general, it's rough. I once actually spun some silk, and I hand spun it, and in what you can do is you can get silk, what they're called hankies, and you put a hole in them, and then you just stretch it out and stretch it out and stretch it out, and you end up making yarn thread that you can knit with. And I made this little tiny thing that it was like a kit, and my hands hurt for days. It was one of the most painful things. So if you already if your hands are already a little bit fussy, don't taunt them any further. Elizabeth Philpott Davis had never heard the term Mobius knitting before. You've looked it on YouTube down the rabbit hole. Okay, so the person who created Mobius knitting is Cat Bordhe. CAT. Okay, so if you want to look for it, look for her. She was a monumental figure in the knitting industry. She has passed within the last decade, and it was a loss because she was a brilliant, brilliant mind. And she invented Mobius knitting. And if you were here a couple of months ago, where I went on my tirade about unventing and its use in knitting, Cat Bordhe is one of the main reasons why I get kind of passionate about that. And anyone who says there's nothing new in knitting and that it's all been done and people are just reinventing wheels, Cat Bordhe invented Mobius knitting. There's that's a hill I'm going to die on, because there is no way. People say, well, people have been knitting for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. You can't tell me that somebody back. No, nobody back there did it. Nobody back then. Nobody in the 15th century did this, because nobody in the 15th century had circular needles. And Mobius knitting was not possible until circular needles hit the point where they were long enough and quality enough to actually execute the technique that Cat Bordhe created for Mobius knitting. Um, Now, is it a really flexible technique? No. Is there a whole lot of different things that you can do with it? Not so much. You can make Mobius strips, which is cowls. And Sylvia Harding has some interesting ones where you start as a Mobius, but then bind off half of it and continue. So she's done some capelets with it, and you can maybe get it on a hat. But it's not. And like I think she did it so it was an integrated Mobius cowl into a sweater. So if you like that, Sylvia Harding has some absolutely beautiful pieces that incorporate that Mobius technique. And that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons why it never really took off hugely, because A, it's a difficult technique to learn, and B, it is not a really super flexible technique, but it is absolutely fascinating, and it's a true mathematical expression of the Mobius strip. So I think it is super cool and interesting. The two, I can't go dig it out, but let me here. Okay, it's not cooperating with me. Here we go. Okay, so that is the first Mobius cowl I designed. It's called McClanahan. And the reason why it's called McClanahan is because I made this cowl for, I designed this cowl and knit it up for my son's second grade teacher for a holiday gift. And her name was Miss McClanahan. So that's why it's called McClanahan, because I was like, I need a name for this thing. It is designed in, you can use worsted, Aran, or bulky weight yarn. It has a true Mobius cast on. And it also, what it does is it is reversible cables. So it uses reversible cables and it integrates into the Mobius. And it really is, I think it's kind of a marvel of engineering, but the pattern has not gone over particularly exciting. I think it's one of those things that how it came to be and understanding the logistics of it is not evident. I think it's one of the ones where I was too successful in trying to make something look easy because it's not. It's an interesting, it's a very interesting cowl. I like it a lot, but it's definitely, you got to do cables and you got to do a Mobius. So there. Dun, dun, dun. Is wool or cashmere heat resistant? No. Ooh, I wouldn't use cashmere, but wool should be fine. Wool should be fine. Just don't ever make stuff for kitchen out of acrylic because that melts. Oh, Abby, thank you for sharing that. Abby is saying that when her carpal tunnel acts up, she's found bamboo. So you're finding bamboo, because I would have put bamboo in the same category as the other plant fibers as being irritating, because it doesn't have any stretch, but it's good to know that it's maybe not as bad. Okay, Elizabeth, you're looking at reciprocity. So now reciprocity is definitely interesting. Reciprocity is me being a show off, I guess. Once I had the one Mobius, I wanted to see what else I could do with Mobius and push Mobius. And so again, reciprocity is deceptively looks deceptively easy, but it really isn't. So it has the center. So if you look at the pictures of reciprocity, you'll see at the very middle of it there is a seed stitch section, and that seed stitch section, the seed stitch section, is knit, and you're holding two yarns together, and that is silky merino and silk paca. So it's a DK weight and a fuzzy lace weight. So you cast on in the seed stitch and work the seed stitch for a certain amount of time. And then you do this thing where you slip, and I can't remember what order it's done in. You do this thing where you drop one of the yarns. Let's say we're dropping the lace weight, and the stitches are joined together, right? So, because it's because they've been held together. So what you do is you slip the lace with yarn held in front and then knit the DK weight, and then slip the lace and knit the DK. And so then after that round, what you have on the needles is a slipped, you've essentially doubled your stitches, and you have the slipped lace, and the only thing knit on the needles is the DK. So then you continue knitting with the DK, slipping the lace with yarn in front and knitting the DK for a certain amount of rows. And then you switch to, I think, purling, or you do it inside out. I can't remember. You work the lace weight while slipping, I think it's, purling the lace weight and slipping the DK with the yarn in back so the lace weight doesn't go in front of it. And you actually, so if you're doing like 5 rows of the DK, you're going to do like 10 rows of the lace. And then on the final round, you're going to come back, hold the 2 yarns together, and then start back into seed stitch, knitting the 2 together and rejoining. So essentially what you're doing is you're creating 2 pieces of fabric, both of which are stockinette on the outside, and the reverse stockinette is together on the inside. But the lace one is a taller piece of fabric, so it buckles out. So, because I wanted to poof out and do the softest. So you're kind of sort of double knitting, but you're creating 2 separate pieces of fabric, and then you join them back together and you do more seed stitch, and then you do another band, but on the other band you're going to make it so that the lace is on the outside and the DK is on the inside, and then more seed stitch, and then you bind it off. So it's nearly impossible to explain. I mean, I just explained it, but the odds of any of y'all understanding it was probably very low. A lot of people probably just left. But what the end result is, these alternating bands of solid DK and the solid lace weight. And the lace weight kind of bulges out a little bit because I wanted to exaggerate that alpaca and silk texture on the neck. And then it alternates because it's the Mobius and it moves in and out of itself. And it's a little weird, but I thought it was interesting. And the reason it's called reciprocity, because I thought about it was reciprocating, but I didn't like the word reciprocating. So there was that. Okay. You're going to make reciprocity in Loki green? It's a little nutty. Oh my goodness, don't write down what I'm saying. Well, the thing is, if you forget anything I'm saying, this is being like recorded by YouTube, and I will let it post. So you can come back and watch this. And I would advise you, especially because it's going to be long, if you're going to come back and watch it. If I were coming back to watch it, I would definitely watch it on chipmunk speed. I would hit that 1.75 or even 2 times speed, because I have 0 attention span. Karen, I was trying to describe something. I was trying to describe something very complicated. It was complicated. Sarah Joe, Barbara, your mind scares me sometimes. This is meant to be a compliment. I'll take it as a compliment. My mind, sometimes I'm like, maybe I could do this. And then I try to do it. And it's so funny because one of my dearest friends, there was something else I was doing and I was explaining. I'm like, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And my friend was like, but why? I'm like, because I can. She's like, or you could just make them like this and sew them together. I'm like, oh, that'd be way easier. I was trying to do it really, really complicated. And she shut me down. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. You have an excellent point. But sometimes I cannot resist myself and I just do wacky, wacky things. Yes, bamboo stretches like nobody's business. I did a piece in mosaic and lace with a bamboo blend. And even though I swatched and I blocked the swatch and then I knit the hat and then I blocked it. And then I realized I had just knit a hat shaped swatch because it was literally big. When I went to put it on, I could actually pull it down and the the hat band was around my neck and it went over my whole head. Like I didn't mean to make a balaclava, whatever they're called. It needed eye holes if it was going to do that. So I ended up for the brim actually having to go down like 2 needle size and chop like 20 to 25 stitches off the cast on because the bamboo just stretches like bonkers. You want to make Clanahan and Loki green? It would look very cool. It's good in any solid color. Sarah Joe reciprocity sounds like knitting hell. No, it's exciting, but also it depends on how much challenge you want. It sounds absolutely bonkers to explain, but the hardest thing about it is the cast on. Literally the hardest thing about it is the cast on. Once the stitches are cast on, it is stockinette, it is seed stitch and stockinette, and that's all you're knitting. It's just if you take it step by step and piece by piece, it works just fine. Explaining what is happening, that is another thunk altogether. Hello, Arnetta. I'm so glad to see you here. Hey, Tracy. I'm excited. Woo! Never late. Heidi Cook. No, it's not for the faint of heart. I should have named it something like I Dare You or something like that. Because it is middle schoolers. That's the worst. Let me tell you. COVID happened halfway through my son's 7th grade year. So the second half of 7th grade and all of 8th grade, he spent doing remote learning. And it was horrible. I mean, the remote learning was really, really rough. But let me tell you, we had already started having some bullying problems. There's a part of me that's not sad that he did not have to live through not sad that he did not have to live through his 8th grade year of middle school, because middle schoolers are just horrible. Hey, Mark the bass player. I'm so glad you joined us. We are here. We're fine. I mean, I haven't had any problems. It doesn't really sound, I mean, it's shaking out there, but we really haven't. We're in the bands. And so it goes up and down. And I think the eye is already past Tampa. So we're on the bottom end of it now. So really it's one of the weakest parts of the storm. So I think that we have gotten through fairly unscathed. We're going to have to do a lot of cleanup in our yard. But we don't really have much in the way of trees either. We have some palms and that's it. Now, I already noticed that we have quite a few palm fronds because I don't allow them, like we don't have someone cut the skirts. If you look at palm trees, the way they're shaped, they have brown skirts and that's the dead palms. And for people who are about, manicured, they cut those off. which gives the palm tree kind of a pineapple look, which I'm not a fan of, but also those brown skirts are one of the major habitats for our native bats. Live up because the way they hang and the way those dead fronds dangle, it's a really great place for bats to get up and hang out in. And bats eat mosquitoes. So, and we actually just had some West Nile, I think. So I do not, but we're getting some free tree trimming by the hurricane. So we're probably going to have to pick up a bunch of that stuff. You're in stitches. Awesome. Double dog dare you. Yes, double dog dare you. That is definitely something that we could have gotten with. I'm like, I dare you. A couple people have made reciprocity though. They have. Not many, I don't think. Let me check. I'm going to go on Ravelry. Oh, well, how am I not signed into Ravelry? I don't know why I'm like, why are you not signed into Ravelry? Seven. There are 7 projects on Ravelry for reciprocity. So it is possible. It looks like there's at least one person that gave up halfway through. and they bound off and said, yeah, we're done. Oh, well, the person said, love this pattern. It was so much fun to knit. For my sister, as a special surprise. So that's nice. It still looks like she gave up halfway through. Whatever makes her happy. It is, yeah, it looks like some people have managed to make it happen. Ooh, I like those colors. Yeah, I love looking at that stuff. If you are on Ravelry and you ever wonder if people ever look at, I can tell you that as a designer, when people post pictures and comments of like on my projects they've made for my patterns, I do go look at them and I do read them and I do appreciate when people post the pictures because I like seeing what people have done. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes people say not nice things and I just try to take it with a grain of salt, or if it's a reasonable criticism, I'll take it under advisement. But mostly I just like seeing pretty pictures. When 8th graders are like, I don't like you, I'm just like, no one did when I was your age. Why would I care now? Excellent. Double dog dare you. I'd have to design something complicated, Karen, and I don't know that I have the brain power right now. I don't know what possessed me to design reciprocity. It was just one of those things that trickled into my... Actually, you know, I have done that. The most recent design that was when I try to explain it, people are like, what's wrong with you? Was in 2022. And that is Vivian. Thank you so much for joining us. I do it. If you haven't gone yet, Vivian, I try to do the last Thursday of every month. So I do my best. I come rain or snow. I try. Hey, at least the electricity is cooperating. So Hazy Shades is my most recent I dare you kind of one. And that one is, there's a whole lot going. There's a whole lot going on there. There's like a whole video on it. So you could watch that if you wanted to, where I explain what is happening with that. Again, interestingly, it also involves lace weight, the lace weight fuzzy yarn. Okay.
When you shop on Etsy,
oh no, you can shut up.
Extraordinary pieces made by real
no.
people.
The YouTube auto played. I would not tell any person to shut up, but I did tell YouTube to shut up. And you know who else I tell to shut up? Alexa. I tell Alexa to shut up all the time because she just infuriates me the vast majority of the time. I mean, I paid, okay? I paid for this device, right? I paid for this device so that it would do things. And frankly, I use it for like two things. I use it to play music and I use it to set timers. And I'll be sitting there and it'll go bong and it's like, you have a notification. And I'm like, what is the notification? And it'll be like, this book is on sale. Do you want to buy it? I'm like, no, I did not pay for you to give me commercials in my own house. Would you like me to add that? Or it'll just be, did you know that you can save this to a, no, just shut up. Okay? Just shut up. I do not need you randomly talking about whatever it is you want to talk about because you're a robot that's supposed to do what I'm telling you to do. Alexa infuriates me. Like all the time. Tracy Lowe. Trace, okay. You were down our direction playing Rockstar. Now you're getting ready for Rhinebeck. Wow, that is quite the travel. Excellent being a rock star in Rhinebeck. Have you been to Rhinebeck before? Because it's fairly awesome. Anyone tried the Knitting Companion app, Tracy? I have not. Again, it's because none of my patterns are like, I'm writing for my own patterns. I know tons and tons of people who absolutely find it indispensable for their knitting. If you like technology, if you like using technology, if you like knitting from your iPad, then it is at least try out the free version and see what you think. But I know a lot of people that think it's the bee's knees. So, and the people, I will tell you, are absolutely lovely. The people on the make Knitting Companion are wonderful. They're very easy to work with. And I can't say enough nice things about them. I just don't know how to use the program. A bundle that says, I dare you. You know what? That might be a good idea. That might be a good idea, Sarah Jo. Probably be reciprocity. The thing is I don't have many that are that difficult. Courant is probably the hardest thing. I don't know, reciprocity. They're not that difficult, but I can work on it. I can work on it. Sarah Jo, interesting. That's because Alexa has been a huge failure for Amazon since the vast majority of interactions don't make money for the company because why would they? It's not a smart company. No, they're not. No, and I don't want it to make money for them. I mean, it's a device. It's a robot. It's there to play me music and set timers for my cooking. That is literally its only use. I don't understand. It keeps on trying to get me to do other stuff. And I'm like, why would I do that with you? I have no interest in that. But who knows? Rosie from the Jetsons. Yes, Rosie from the Jetsons would be awesome, Carrie. She had a smart mouth, though, but that's good. Tell my screen to shut. Yes, YouTube autoplayed something, and I didn't want it to autoplay it, and you guys could hear it. And I'm like, stop it. I have two screens, so whenever I'm like telling you guys I'm going to look for something or talk about something, I just open up on the other screen. Is what I'm looking at. I have you guys like full size so I can effectively read the chat, but then I have things up on the other screen. Right now it's YouTube, Barocco, something about cutaneous allergies of cotton, Juniper Moon Farm, reciprocity, and hazy shades. So it's everything that we've talked about. Cat 4 hurricanes, they're bad. Arnetta, use the Knitting Companion app all the time. Okay, so Arnetta is voting, saying that the Knitting Companion is great for if you need to follow a pattern. You know, there are people, it's one of those things that either you like it or you don't. It has like stitch markers and you can color code and you can customize and you can do all kinds of stuff for it. The people that I have found that do not care for the Knitting Companion app are the people who do not care for knitting from their device. They're the people who print out and use a physical paper pattern. If that's the kind of person you are, you're not going to like Knit Companion. It's not for you. But if you like using your patterns on your device, Knit Companion is a wonderful companion for your patterns. Oh, great, Sarah Jo. That's just what I needed to know. Depending on what you tell it, it may download third-party apps. Fantastic. I don't know. Oh, your GPS. I like paper and pencil too. That's what I use. So Mark, the bass player, sounds like your GPS. Okay. So let me tell you, my spouse is an early adopter, full time. He wants all the new technology. Back in the day, right? We're talking back in the day. He got the TomTom. Like when the TomTom was the new hot thing, he got the TomTom and he put it in my car. And he's like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to use it. So we get in the car and he's like, okay, now you program in where you want to go. And I'm doing it. And he goes, and then you drive. And then the TomTom will tell you what to do. And he had it set for like the default slightly British woman's voice. Right. And I started driving. I pulled out of my driveway and I started driving. And I promise you, we did not get like maybe a mile. We had been in the car for somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes. And I was cussing at that woman. I was like, you don't tell me where to go. I know how to get out of my own neighborhood. What is your problem? And he goes, I think I need to find a different voice for you because I had it with that pretentious woman. And he ended up paying extra because it was when you had to pay for different voices. And he got John Cleese for me. And I didn't have a problem with John Cleese telling me where to go because he also was funny. But man, me and that woman, that TomTom was going to go out the window because I was not having it because she was telling me to go one way and I was like, no, I'm going this way. And if you go the way they don't want you to go, then they start yelling at, oh my gosh, I was over it. Arnetta, you use print patterns and Knit Companion depending on the pattern. And the more complex patterns, I totally see how that would do. See, I don't have a pad device at all. I don't have an iPad. The only thing I have is my phone. And I would not knit off of, I wouldn't use, and actually mine's an Android. I think they have an Android, but I don't have the right device for using it, and I don't have an iPad, and I don't really plan on getting. I had an iPad at one point in time, but those things become obsolete fairly quickly. Yes, Barbara versus GPS lady was very, very. There was gonna be World War III there. My husband was concerned that his brand new toy was gonna be chucked out the window. And we still had that TomTom. Actually, we went to Asheville and it was like, it kept telling me to turn right. And I'm like, do you want me to drive off this mountain? Because that's what's going to happen if I turn right. I'm going to drive off the side of this mountain. You can use it on an Android device. Cool. I don't have an Android device big enough that I would want to try again to use a pattern for it. Mark's prime issue on GPS is your rig is 12 feet tall. GPS. Ooh, yeah. It thinks you can fit. That's bad. That's not good. Heather Go. John Cleese was great in the program Faulty Towers. I know John Cleese mostly from Monty Python, but we actually did go see when John Cleese and Eric Idle did like a comedy tour. We went and saw them. And that was fairly cool. They just sat in like chairs. Oh, bye-bye, Kathleen. Thank you so much for your questions and participating with us. And honestly, it's been about an hour and a half. I know some of y'all did come in a little bit late, and I really, really appreciate you coming. Are there any more questions? Did anyone have any questions? We talked about what was the best yarn for baby knitting, and we talked about all kinds of fun stuff. Mobius. I'm excited that some of y'all are excited about Mobius. Okay. You guys are patient. Okay. Let me see. Let's see. Okay, hang on. I'm going to go real quick and see if I can find... Oh my goodness. Okay. There we go. Here we go. So, this is one of 3 tubs that I have in my closet that is full of knitted samples. Mark, the bass player, Knit Companion does have a free sample-y kind of thing, so you can take a look at that. So, when I walked in there, saw this. Okay. Oh, we talked about cotton wool blends. This is the hat I did out of a cotton wool blend. You can see how the texture of it's really cool. Where? Oh my gosh. Okay. This is McClanahan. This is the Mobius. It is the box. It is so heavy. So, if you look here, if you see, if I just run it like this, okay. Let me find, I don't have a removable marker close at hand. Huh. No. Nope. No removable markers. Okay. We'll take a little piece of yarn. Did anybody watch this week's video where I said if you try to handbrake something with silk in it, it's not going to work? I just tried. I forgot this had silk in it, so that was painful. That was super painful. Okay, William, we will talk about swatches in just a second, because I love me some swatching. Okay, so I'm going to make a quick loop here, right? Okay, look here. I put this little yarn on there, right? Now, if I start here, and now you can see I'm on the edge, right? I'm on the edge. I'm on the edge. I'm not doing any hocus pocus. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just inching along the edge. This edge that I am inching along is the bind off. Okay? I'm going around on the edge. You may be saying, wow, that's a really long neck. Well, that's because it's not the neck. There we go. I've come all the way. There we go. That is what makes it a Mobius. A true Mobius has one plane and one edge. Okay? This is not seamed anywhere. The cast on is right here. Okay? You cast on right here, and it grows from that point. And then when you get to the point where it's time to bind off, you will have cable from your circular needle here and here. but you just bind off and you just keep binding off. And just like I showed you, eventually you'll come back around to where you started because it's one edge and it is one surface. And so it has that twist built in. And the thing is, it's a half twist. When people say they make a Mobius, and when they simply knit something flat, twist it, and then sew it together, that is a full twist. And you had to either bind off on both these edges or bind off on both these edges. You're either starting at the bottom and knitting up, or starting at this side and knitting this way, and then joining it together and flipping it. You have two surfaces and two edges. This, a true Mobius cast on, like this, one surface, one edge. So that is, and this is the reversible cable. It's the same on both sides. So that is a Mobius. It is super cool. Okay. Okay, Williams Henshaw. Advice about swatching and which way to go on gauges or where to go for help. Could you elaborate on that question? I have quite a few swatching type videos. Honestly, I don't honestly remember what I even talked about, but there's one. It's from January. So I have quite a few videos on gauge and swatching because I'm a bit but my freaking computer is not correct. YouTube's not cooperating with my searches. Dun, 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 dun. And here is a very old one. What? Karen, watch all the swatch and gauge videos, or just watch all the videos. It's bound to come up. It is bound to come up. I do talk about gauge a lot. I'm kind of obsessed with gauge. But so, oh, William, are you talking about gauge in the app? Okay. Okay, you're trying to knit a sweater and the gauge works out great. Then when I go to the size I want, it doesn't work. That's funny, Abby. Yes, I did cut my hair, Heidi. And actually, I'm supposed to get a haircut. I was supposed to get a haircut today, but everything's closed. This has gotten way, way too long on the sides. It's supposed to be much, much shorter. But yes, I cut a lot of my hairs off. So yeah, I have quite a few gauge videos, and there are reasons sometimes why. The problem with trying to tell you about gauge is that there's a whole bunch of questions involved. And one of the things is, so it's very important when you are knitting a gauge swatch that you're using the same yarn that you're planning on knitting with in the pattern. You use the same needles that you are planning on using to execute the pattern, and you have to knit in the same manner that the pattern is going to be created. So that specifically, that is one place where people find troubleshooting issues, is that they will swatch flat for something that is intended to be knit in the round. And so if the sweater that you're trying to make is knit in the round and you have swatched flat, your gauge will most likely be off. Because when you swatch flat, you knit one side and you purl the other side. And the tension between your knit and your purl, almost every knitter, the tension is different. When you swatch stockinette in the round, you're knitting every single row, and it's just the knit tension. So you will end up with a different gauge. The other place where a lot of people don't realize is that you cannot measure your gauge until you've blocked your swatch. So you knit your gauge swatch, be it in the round or flat, and then you have to treat it the way you plan on treating the final project. You have to block that, because the gauge given to you on the pattern is the blocked gauge. And again, that can cause a significant difference in the size. So you did swatch in the round, see, so you knew all that. So you did swatch in the round. So you were there. Did you block your swatch? Because blocking the swatch can also make a fairly significant difference. And it's just, and so some people will be, so you blocked your swatch. I don't know. Those are my troubleshooting. I don't know, William. I wish I could look at it. I wish I could look at it and try to help you troubleshoot it. And that's where you run into problems with trying to do these kinds of things over the wild, wild internet kind of situation. So if you knit it with the same needles and the same materials and the same yarn and you blocked it, it should. Now, how big of a swatch did you make? Again, you're going to want to make you need to be able to measure 4x4 without any interference from the edges. And did you like finish the pattern? When you say that it didn't work, at what stage do you determine in the making of the sweater? I hope you didn't make the whole sweater to find it out. I don't know, Karen, that the type of yarn is going to matter that much, because if he's blocked it and everything, it should have taken into account all of those things. The counts were off. Well, the counts shouldn't have anything to do with gauge. Yeedy? Is that pronounced Yeedy Rodriguez? Yeedy. It looks like Yeedy or Yeedy. Your tension changes as you knit it, usually relaxes. Sometimes it does. That can happen. That's why I always say that if you swatch with a glass of wine, you need to knit with a glass of wine. Jeedy? Jeedy. A hard J? Very cool name. I'm trying. Jeedy. It was when you were JD. Okay, JD. JD. Good night, Heather. Thank you so much for participating. Oh my gosh, 109. Yeah, my goodness. When you were to change colors. Again, this is the kind of thing that there's so many variables and so many questions that it's hard to troubleshoot and figure out what's going on. The whether or not you're on gauge shouldn't have anything to do with the counts. Have you checked to see if there are any like how many people have successfully made this pattern? See if there are any notes on the pattern itself. Ravelry is a really good place for that. See if there are any errata for the pattern, because sometimes patterns are just wrong. I mean, that is a possibility, especially if you're talking about something that has multiple sizes. If you're trying to make a size that is less commonly made, the grading might have gone wonky. You ended up with something giant. I'm sorry, Heidi. No apologies, William. We're just trying to figure it out. It's just, it's one of those things, and that's Rose. Rose jumped to the same thing I did. It could be a problem with the pattern. I mean, once you've exhausted all the other issues, it definitely could be the problem for the pattern. Now, again, why I recommend you going to Ravelry is if you go to Ravelry and see that like 300 people have already made this pattern, then the problem probably isn't the pattern. But it's just a way to try to figure out. Find no notes. Oh, see, you've done everything right, William. I would like to say, and if it's at all possible, if you have a local yarn store anywhere close to you, or a local knitting group, this is kind of one of those things that you might take some time to figure it out. I wish I could help you figure this out. So when you change colors, something's off. That's weird. That's not gauge. It's a pattern on Ravelry. So here's the thing. There's no, I'm just going to say this. There's no such thing as like a Ravelry pattern. Ravelry doesn't make any patterns. Ravelry just serves as a go-between between designers or companies and the consumer. So there's going to be a designer. There should be a designer listed on your pattern. If you go to the Ravelry, what is the name of the pattern? Maybe I can look it up. If you go to the name, like the pattern, you should be able to determine who the author of the pattern is. If you could, sorry, I was mumbling. If you could tell me the name of the pattern, I can see if I can look it up and we can figure out whose it is. Because the Ravelry just really is a platform. It's a database. When you buy something on Ravelry, you are buying directly from the person who made it. So you do it. Sorry, I was just wanting to explain it just in case there were other people that didn't quite, because there are people who think that they're buying from Ravelry. And Ravelry, I'm not going to say they don't sell anything because they have like t-shirts and stuff, but they don't sell patterns. Hide and peek. Let me look that up. Oh, well, Maxim Sur is a very good reputation designer. I would highly recommend, if you're having these problems, to contact the designer. I mean, when I get emails from people who have purchased my patterns, and pattern support is part of having a pattern, is trying to help people when they run into problems. It is a very cool sweater. And it's been successfully executed quite a few times. Let's see if there are any that have projects with notes. The first project, the notes were in Spanish. That's not helpful for me, but I bet JD could read them. There's a lot of discussion about gauge here. I can honestly tell you, William, though, I have never attempted to make anything like this. I'm afraid I am not a garment knitter at all, and I do not design them, so I tend to be spectacularly unuseful when it comes to these kinds of things, because I don't know how these things work. I get very, very like it's a sweater. That's about as far as I can get there. You think it's your size. So you're trying to want to make one of the larger sizes. It could be that the grading is not quite right. That is a place where errors sneak in really bad for because the thing is you got to use all this math to size things up and down, and it can get really challenging because it's not as easy as simple as just add X number of inches for each thing, especially when you get up into much larger sizes and plus sizes like myself, because things don't change at the same rate. If you add 2 inches to the shoulders and 2 inches to the neck for X number of sizes, you're gonna people's shoulders don't get that wide in proportion to like what their bust and their chest does. And if you size like the arm sky, you'll end up with an arm sky like down at your waist, because things don't change that significantly. You know, chest measurements can change significantly, but the neck measurement is not going to change that like in equal amounts to the chest size. There's a proportion that you have to maintain, and sometimes that gets by the wayside. Sometimes it's just people trying to do simple math, and it's not simple math. Abby Franklin, for what it's worth, when I started knitting, I thought the purpose of doing a gauge swatch was to recalculate the number of stitches and rows to knit it rather than changing needle size, and it messed me up a lot. Yeah, you made life really hard for yourself. I mean, it can be done to do that, but no, that sounds painful. So what I did is I went to the hide and peek on the thing, and then I clicked on the tab that says projects 404. And then once you have that up, you could actually just go through them all, but there's 404. There's the thing that says filter these projects. And if you click on the drop down thing, you can filter where you only look at projects with notes, or you can click all helpful projects. So helpful projects are going to be something that someone else said, yes, that is a helpful project. And then you want to set the view results to make it easy as possible. You set view results to tall cards, and you can see the beginning of the notes to guess if it's going to have maybe useful information for you. Costume designer, very cool. You probably understand grading better than a lot of designers do. One of the reasons I don't do garments is that I only have a tenuous grasp on how grading works. I mean, I understand the concept of it, but I have graded one garment light pattern once, and it took me days and tears. So kudos to you. Yeah, so and you can go through the filters, and you can filter for different things and see what kind of notes that people have given on changing, like you can do either by helpful notes, or if clicking helpful notes, you get 2 pages. And if I click on projects with notes, just period, I get 6 pages. So if you really want to comb through the notes, then there's 6 pages of notes that you can look and see. And it's like this one says, hang on, let's click through to this one. It says, I knit this sweater for my husband in size 6. His chest circumference is 124. So it has 6 centimeters of positive ease, added some short rows. Knitting patterns in a bigger size always leave the rest ending up with a large. This is exactly what I was just talking about. Knitting patterns in a bigger size always leaves a risk of ending up with a larger neckline, something that I really want to avoid for men's sweater. Therefore, I chose to double the collar to give it more strength. After finishing, I also crocheted around the inside of the collar once to make sure the neckline will stay in place. These 2 adjustments resulted in a neckline I'm happy with. So this knitter is saying, I made these changes to compensate for the idea that the neck might be blown out. So, and here's one person who is saying, cast on 100 for necks too big still. Again, I don't know that that's useful. So those kind of things are really useful on Ravelry, and hopefully it'll get you. As far as I know, you cannot filter the projects by size knitted. Let me check and see, though. Let's go to the advanced filter. Photo. No, you can't filter by size knitted, unfortunately. Because there's no place that people really put that in. There's no official slot for in Ravelry for you to probably put in what size you made. You would write that in your notes. There's some amazing filters. I mean, Ravelry has an incredibly deep ability. Hello, Steve. Steve? We have a Steve. Very exciting. Very cool. There's all kinds of amazing things that people have put out there. Okay, so we had some actual knitting questions. We had a lot of weather discussion. Things seem to be calm. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me tonight. I should be back next Thursday. Very excited. I might have something fun to chat about because that'll be the end of October. And I am actually taking 2 classes at my local technical college that for the adult continuing education, I'm going to be taking a watercolor class and a birding class. So I might just be talking about birds all the time. I don't know about anything else. Thank you, William, for coming. And Elizabeth, Ravelry does have a size field. See, learn something new every day. Oh, you got the swatchy, Mark? I finally got that done. That's something that's been on the list, but it was a pain. It was a pain to do, and I kept not wanting to do it. I'm sure that nobody has anything that they procrastinate, but I got it done. It's out there for y'all. I'm going to stay dry. I'm going to stay inside. Thank y'all so much. I will hopefully see you next month. Think of some good questions for me. And again, everyone, please hold everyone in the light that is in the path of this storm. And make sure that, you do whatever devotion that you can to positive thoughts to keep people safe, because this is a very, very dangerous storm. And I've been through many of these storms, and I know that there are actually a lot of people in the path that haven't been through these kinds of storms, and it's going to be scary for them. And I hope that they make it through okay. So, Canada geese, not Canadian geese. They don't hold citizenship. I don't know that those are the kind of birds I'm going to be looking at, Abby. I'm thinking we're going to have a lot more water birds, or possibly they are a water bird. I don't know. We'll find out. I'm going to be excited about birds. Okay. Thank y'all so much. I will see you next time, and y'all stay safe. Okay. We're going to click this button. Okay. Bye-bye.